Buongiorno. Welcome to Angela's Kitchen. I'm Angela and this is my kitchen. Today we are going to prepare dolci. Dolci are desserts. The first dessert we'll prepare is called zabaglione alla napoletana, which is an egg custard. It's very, very light and very delicious, and particularly after a heavy holiday meal or even a heavy meal or with a pasta, what have you, you want something light. The zabaglione just suits the purpose. Legend has it that the soccer players in Italy, after an especially difficult game, were told by their coaches to go and get their zabaglione, which was a very nutritious dessert. And of course they loved it because it was so tasty. Now, in order to make our zabaglione, we're going to need a 2-quart, this is a double boiler. However, if you have a 2-quart pan, you can put a bowl on top and it'll serve the purpose just as well. We're going to need 6 eggs. We're going to need 6 tablespoons of sugar, 12 tablespoons of dry marsala, the rind of 1 orange. This is a 10-ounce frozen package of raspberries, and I've removed the juices and reserved them for something else. However, if you can get fresh raspberries or strawberries, of course, that would be preferable. We'll need a half a pint of whipping cream, a teaspoon of vanilla, and this 1 tablespoon of sugar is for the whipping cream. And here we have 2 squares of baker's chocolate, which I have grated. And this is your unsweetened chocolate. Now, in order for us to prepare our zabaglione, we're going to have to separate the yolks from the white. We do not use the white in zabaglione in the authentic style. So what we do is crack the egg and separate the white from the yolk, and that's rather simple. You see, it just comes off this way, and put it in the top of your double boiler or whatever you're using for a double boiler. That's 2. Three. 4. Of course, if you get some white, it's not going to hurt. And if the yolk cracks, that's not going to bother it either, because we're going to be whipping it. Of course, we use our eggs at room temperature, so have them stand out a little bit before you do separate them. Of course, we do have 6 egg whites, don't we? Well, you can make a nice angel food cake for that, or if you're making a casserole, you can put it into any kind of casserole. It will enhance the flavor and not really change it all that much. Now, in order for us to prepare our zabaglione, we will put a cup and a half of cold water in the bottom of the 2-quart pan. However, if your pan is a different size, you're going to have to adjust the amount so that making sure that the base of the double boiler does not touch the water. That is the one thing that you don't want to do. So make sure that the level of the water is just below the base of the upper pan. Now we're going to add the 6 tablespoons of sugar to our 6 egg yolks, like so. Then take your blender, and I'm using a Teflon coated beater because this is a Teflon lined pan. And I'm going to whip this until it becomes lemony in color, and I'm going to put it on about the medium speed. Now, one thing we must remember, that in order to make sure that our water is prepared, we have turned the water on, the 1.5 cups of cold water. We do not want it to come to a boil. It's just under a boil. And it'll stay at that temperature for the period of time that we will be making our zabaglione, which takes about 9 minutes all told. So I'm going to wait until my water is prepared and continue beating this, which would probably take just about a half minute. I had the heat on high until the water reached the point that I wanted it to reach. The bubbles are underneath, but they're not coming to the surface and bubbling strongly. The heat is now on medium, smack in the middle of medium, and I'm going to put the upper portion of the double boiler onto the lower portion. I want you to notice one thing. Look at how little volume there is there. But you'll see that it really grows. In 9 minutes it'll be practically to the top. I'm going to continue beating this at medium for 3 minutes. I want you to look at the difference, the change in color of the eggs. Isn't that lovely? At this point, I'm going to add the masala a little at a time and continue beating. This beating will then continue for 6 minutes more. Remember, these are 12 tablespoons of dry masala, not sweet. Our 6 minutes are up. I'm going to turn off the heat. Now I'm going to remove the zabaglione from the heat, and I'm going to add the orange peel and give it a few seconds more. All right, now if you'll join me at the counter. This is the consistency of your zabaglione. You see that? Now what I'm going to do is place this in the refrigerator for about a half hour to cool fast. In the meantime, during this period of time, you can be whipping your cream. We're ready to whip our cream. Now one little hint, in order to hasten the whipping process, chill your bowl and your beaters. And of course your cream will be nicely chilled too. That'll make your whipping much faster. That's a cup of heavy cream, or a half pint. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar. Scant. All right, now we're ready for our whipping. And of course, you'll do this until it reaches the consistency of whipped cream, as we all know. We all know what that should look like. All right, our whipped cream is ready. Now, depending upon how elegant you want to get and the kind of containers that you have, really a sundae little dish like this would be fine, or an elegant white wine or champagne flute, or this, of course, also is quite pretty, isn't it? But if you just want to serve it to your family in a little deep dish, that's fine too. What I like to do is add some of our raspberries, from which I have removed the juices, and I've reserved that for another dish. And of course, if it's glass like that, it's nice to put it at the bottom because it's so pretty to look at, like that. We then add some zabaglione to the dish, to the glass, like so, almost to the top, but not quite. We want to leave room for our whipped cream. And whipped cream on top of that, a nice dollop of whipped cream on top of this. And then we add our grated chocolate. Can anything be prettier? Do the same thing with this. There. And you can add more or less depending upon your tastes. Add your whipped cream to the top of that. And again, our chocolate. Again, according to taste. Isn't that pretty? Now, since this one is not glass, I'm going to do something a little different. We'll put the zabaglione at the bottom, because you can go on until you have all 6 made, but I'm just going to do the 3. We then add our whipping cream. What I like to do is put little around the edge on this one. Make this a little different. And you can be as creative as you like, obviously. You want to put a maraschino cherry there too, that'd be kind of nice. Then we take our raspberry and we place it here and there, again around the rim. Go. And a little bit of the chocolate filling the center. And there we have 3 lovely looking desserts, and it's all zabaglione alla napoletana. Next we're going to make crispelle con pesche, which are peach crepes. Now, in order for us to prepare our crepes, we're going to need an 8-inch pan. This is actually 8 inches on the perimeter and 6 inches here. This is a little frying pan. I like the sautéing pan, the Teflon coated one, because it has the rounded edges and you can flip your crepes very easily. We're going to use a blender this time. And in order to prepare our crepes, we will need 3 eggs, 1 cup of milk, 5 tablespoons of sugar. We're only going to use 4 in the crepes. The other one will be used for your whipping cream. A pinch of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/2 grated rind of navel orange. We always use navel oranges for grating. They're sweeter. And 1/2 grated rind of lemon, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of Grand Marnier, which is an orange-based liquor. Any other orange-based liquor will do as well, but this is the finest. And then 1/4 cup of vegetable oil for preparing the crepes, 1 cup of sifted confectioner's sugar, but what I've done is simply put it into a sifter, and I'm going to sift it right onto the crepes, 8 peach halves. Of course, if it were summertime, we would use fresh peaches and stew them and use them. 1/2 pint of whipping cream, or 1 cup, which I have already whipped and we whip it exactly as we did before. 8 maraschino cherries with their stems, and 1/2 stick of melted butter. All right, we're going to add our 3 eggs to the blender, like so. And beat them for just 15 seconds. Add 1 cup of milk and mix. We're going to add 4 tablespoons of sugar, so I'm going to remove 1 tablespoon, which we will use for our whipping cream. A pinch of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, the grated rind of 1 navel orange, the grated rind of 1/2 lemon. Let's mix these. Next, we're going to add the flour a little at a time until we've used up the entire cup, blending after each addition. Like that. I'm going to add the rest of it. And at this time we add our 1/2 stick of melted sweet butter. We never use salt butter in our cooking. All right, now our batter is ready. Would you join me at the stove, please? All right, I have put just a scant teaspoon, just about a little less than a teaspoon of oil into my pans. I'm using 2 pans, and the heat is on medium for both of them. We don't want it to get too hot. We don't want our crepes to burn. All right, so I'm kind of dispersing the oil, and in order to test if our heat is high enough and warm enough, what I do is put just a smidgen of batter into each one and see if it sets fast enough. Now this one's hot enough, see? They remain in their little shapes. And this one too, you see I can move it around. So I'm going to throw that out too. So it means our heat is about right. Now, about 1/4 cup of batter for each skillet. Just scant. It doesn't have to be a whole quarter. Just enough so that we will cover the base of our pan and move it around so that the edges touch a little bit of the area that is going up, like so. I'll do the same thing here. Scant 1/4 cup. Now, depending upon how large our eggs are, we should get about 8 crepes out of this. You might get 1 or 2 more. Let's leave it like this for just under 2 minutes. Now you can check after a short period of time and look underneath to see that it is a golden color. And you can tell that when the edges are dry, you see, and they come up, you can tell that it's cooking nicely. Look underneath. And if it needs a little more time, you can give it a little more time. But it should take about 1.5 minutes on one side and then about a minute on the other side. All right, this has been just under 1.5 minutes. What I did was check it, and it's a pretty color. It really doesn't require that much cooking time. That's about the color that it should be. And on this other side, it'll probably be under 1 minute too. So the total time should be no more than 2 minutes. If your batter is thicker, it'll take 2.5 minutes. This is a fine batter, so it shouldn't take all that time. I'm going to check this one. There. And when you turn it, one of the hints is that the top batter has set. There are no loose liquid spots. Now you check underneath. That's not quite ready, you see? Same there. Now when your crispelle is ready, we'll put it into a warm platter, and each one will be covered with wax paper. Add a little more oil, just about the tip of your teaspoon. This, remember, was the 1/4 cup of oil that we had set aside for this very thing. This one should be ready now. Yes. There. Cover that with wax paper. Add a little oil. You see, it's very fast. You can hear the pan sizzling. You know that it's hot enough. Now, when these set, I will check them, and if they're a golden brown like the other two, I'll flip it over. Don't get hung up on time. It's really we give you a kind of a guide, but if I say 1 minute, don't wait till your minute is up. If your crepe is ready, just turn it over. See, there are still soft spots there, so we know the crepe is not ready. Same here. See? There's some runny batter there. We got 8 crepes out of that batter, and you can serve it, again, as elegantly or as simply as you like. Here is the crepe. Sprinkle it with powdered sugar. As I said, these are very light desserts. The purpose of them is that you can come home at night and prepare these. If you have somebody coming in, say, coming home to dinner and they'll whip up something, you can whip this up very easily. This is your Grand Marnier, which is your orange-based brandy, which you place over the peach and drizzle whatever else over the rest of the crepe. Then we take our whipping cream, put a nice dollop of it on top, and with a cherry. And that is a simple and lovely dessert. Crispelle con pesche. And you would do that, of course, to everyone. The dolce that we are going to make now is called Bignè di San Giuseppe, which are St. Joseph's cream puffs. It is a traditional dessert for St. Joseph's name day in Italy. However, these are so delicious they're made over and over again for many occasions. First, we will need a 2-quart pot, pan such as this, a wooden spoon for stirring, a lid that we will use later to cover our dough, a pointed knife that I use to make a slit in the hot cream puffs so that the steam escapes and so that they do not become soggy, a tablespoon for dropping the batter onto the cookie sheet, and I like to use a small spatula, or you may use another spoon to get it off onto the cookie sheet easily. For the ingredients then, we will need 1 1/4 cups of cool water, 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter, a pinch of salt, 3/4 of a cup of sifted all-purpose flour, 4 eggs, 1 rounded tablespoon of granulated sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of grated lemon rind, and here I have about a 1/2 cup of confectioner's sugar, which I use simply to sprinkle over the cream puffs once they have cooled and they have been filled. And here we have a cookie sheet, which is 11 by 17, and a cooling rack upon which we will place our beignets when they come out of the oven so that they can cool fast. All right, now we're going to add our 1 1/4 cups of cold water to our pan, as well as the butter, and a pinch of salt. We're going to put our stove on high and wait until the water boils so that the butter begins to melt. Now you notice I have a short-handled wooden spoon. I like this because it gives me more leverage for all of the turning and whipping. Would you join me at the stove, please? Our butter is practically melted now. Water is boiling nicely. And as soon as the butter is completely melted, I will take this off of the heat. You see it's foaming, so we know that it's completely melted. Take this off of the heat like so, and I'm going to add the flour all at once and stir very, very rapidly. Can you see that? In the meantime, I have the oven preheating at 400. Also, I have a cooled, medium-sized bowl. Actually, I had that in the freezer for a few seconds, in which I will put the completed dough after the eggs have been added and the lemon and the sugar to cool for about 15 minutes before we use the dough and to put onto the cookie sheet. All right, now, as soon as I have all of the flour incorporated, my heat should be on low. And if it's an electric stove, I would recommend put it all the way down to warm. And just give this a couple more twirls in the pan. And you will find that it'll come to a ball. It removes itself from the sides and comes together to form a nice smooth mass. Now if you listen carefully, you will hear kind of a sizzling sound. You hear that? That means that the ball is ready. All right, there you go, a nice smooth ball. And I'm transferring this into my cool, medium-sized bowl. Now, you see how nice that looks. In order to hasten the process of cooling it down, you can put it in the refrigerator, but it really is not necessary. You'll do this and have it rest for 15 minutes before you add your eggs. The dough has been sitting in this chilled bowl now for 15 minutes. Actually, I had it in my refrigerator, and I did turn it once so that the warm underside of the dough could get the benefit of the cool air. Of course, it's not completely cooled, but that's all right. Now, we will take these one egg at a time and incorporate it into the batter. Now, this is what kind of comes apart in lumps, smooth, slimy little lumps, but you'll see that pretty soon, you see that it kind of all falls apart as the egg touches the dough, but pretty soon it'll amalgamate itself and sounds like a corporation, doesn't it? And become one smooth mass again, and you'll see. And this takes about a minute, maybe a little less, for each egg. And you just keep turning under and over, and turn around like so. See, it's already beginning to smooth. And this is why I like my short handle spoon, because I can guide it better and I have more strength that way. All right, you see, it's completely incorporated. There you go. So it's time to add another egg. When you see no more yolk or liquid, then you know it's time. All right, again, you're going to see it kind of fall apart. All 4 eggs have now been added, and you notice it looks like a thick cookie dough prior to cooking. At this time, we're going to add our rounded tablespoon of granulated sugar and our half teaspoon of lemon rind, and mix well. Now, you may have wondered why there was such a large proportion of water to eggs. The reason for that is that when we bake our cream puffs, the water allows the dough to expand, and the reason it doesn't fall is that the eggs, as they congeal and cook, allow them to keep their shape. All right, now after we have mixed our lemon and sugar into the batter, we're going to cover it and let it stand in a cool place for 15 minutes. If it's wintertime, a window ledge would be fine. If it's summertime, your refrigerator is ideal. So we let it sit for about 15 minutes, covered in a cool place, which we're going to do now. Our dough has been resting for 15 minutes, and the reason for that is to kind of disperse the flavor of the sugar and the lemon evenly throughout the batter. Now, I'm going to take a tablespoon, and you should get 18 to 20 nice-sized puffs. Now, these will almost double in size, so you see that they're going to be a good size, so that you're going to leave space between the cream puffs. Don't put them too closely together. We may not be able to get the 20 puffs on here, so you'll have to do it twice, because we have to allow space for them to expand. But a nice rounded tablespoon, such as this, and we'll fill our cookie sheet. Of course, you can make them larger, you can make them smaller, depending upon what the pastry is and whether they're going to be hors d'oeuvres, appetizers, or dessert. These, of course, can also be filled with chicken, tuna, all kinds of goodies. course, then you would eliminate your lemon and your sugar in your batter. You don't want a sweet batter for those. I'm going to add a little more to some of these. What I'm going to do also for you today is I'm going to prepare a small tray of smaller ones so you can see the size and you can decide which size you want. Of course, if you're using a teaspoon instead of a tablespoon, you'll get something like 36 to 40 cream puffs. There we go. As I said, my oven is preheated at 400. These will stay in the oven for 25 minutes, and don't open your oven. At 25 minutes, time it, then open your oven to see that they are nicely golden brown. If perchance your oven is a little cooler than 400 degrees shows, give it another second or more so that they are a lovely color. All right, we're putting these in the oven now. And as you notice, there are 15 here. We're going to make Italian cream filling for our cream puffs. We'll need a mixer and a double boiler again as before, and in the bottom of it I have placed again 1½ cups of cold water so that the water does not touch the base of the double boiler. 3 large eggs, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, 2 cups of whole milk, a cinnamon stick, which I am pulling apart so that the flavors will mingle better into the Italian cream. And here I have the peels of 1 whole lemon in portions like this. Just cut it away from the lemon itself. We will not be using the lemon. And again, this is powdered sugar that we're going to be using to sprinkle over the cream puffs when they're finished. All right, the first thing we will do is put our water on the stove to let it come to just under a boil as we did for the zabaglione. I have the heat on high in order to expedite the whole process. And as soon as the water is ready, I will then put the milk over the heat, but the heat will be turned down low. So I'm going to add the 2 cups of milk to the upper portion of our double boiler right now. Now we're going to wait for the water to boil. All right, the water is at the right temperature. You'll notice there are bubbles at the bottom, but there are no bubbles on top. I'm going to place the top of the double boiler over it and pour the milk into this. My heat has been turned to low. And while that milk is warming, I'm going to whip the eggs with the 1/2 cup of sugar on medium until they turn a lovely lemon color. As soon as I plug it in, that is. There we go. Take about 2 minutes all told. It's all nicely mixed now. Turn the mixer off. And with a rubber spatula, you can get all of this out of the bowl and into the milk that is warming. Now this remains on low throughout the cooking. When the mixture becomes a custard-like consistency, and you'll see, and I'll show you, then it's ready. We use a wooden spoon again to stir, and at this time, give it a whirl. I'm going to add the lemon skin and the cinnamon stick. These will be removed at the end of our cooking time, of course. See, our cinnamon stick was cut in two. Now we're just going to keep stirring this until the mixture thickens. And of course it will do that as soon as it gets hot enough. Be surprised the lovely flavor that the lemon skin lends to the Italian cream, as well as the cinnamon. All right, this has been about 12 minutes, and this is about the consistency. You see, it's like a custard. As it cools, it'll get thicker. I'm going to transfer this to a glass bowl so that you can see it better. Would you join me at the counter, please? All right, you see it starts thickening at the bottom before the rest of it thickens. This is why it's imperative that we continue stirring it all the time. Otherwise, it's going to cook up too hard down at the base. This is the way it should be, still soft and custardy like this. At this point, we remove all of the, whatever we have in here, your cinnamon sticks, find all of your lemon peels, and remove every one of them, making sure that there are none left there. And then we have our completed custard as I prepared for you yesterday. And as I said, it yields about 2½ to 2 2/3 cups. One pound or 2 cups of whole milk ricotta. Don't use the skim, it just doesn't work. 2 tablespoons of little bits, semi-sweet chocolates. They sell them in 12-ounce packets. 1/2 cup of sifted confectioner's sugar. 1 tablespoon of grated orange rind. 1/2 of a teaspoon of almond extract, and a pinch of cinnamon. Now you can also add candied fruits to the ricotta mixture, such as citron, which is sold in the supermarkets during the Christmas holidays, for example, or you might like to add little bits of nut. Now this is the plain ricotta filling as you find it in your cannoli, which is a very popular Italian dessert. All we do now is mix the ingredients into the ricotta. Chocolate bits. These are smaller than chocolate chips. I think you know that. Then your sugar. This looks like a lot of sugar, but as you know, confectioner's sugar takes a lot more space than granulated sugar because it's so much finer. Mix it nicely. Then your orange rind. Got a pretty color. Then your almond extract, make sure you don't put too much. This is just a half a teaspoon. I'll put even a little less. Scant half teaspoon. And some cinnamon to taste. Now, had the ricotta been a little dry, you might have added a tablespoon of water to it, or milk preferably. However, this is not dry, so I won't be adding any more liquid to it. Now, I have refrigerated my ricotta in the one that I prepared overnight, so it looks like this, and all of the flavors have mingled. Now, you don't have to do that overnight, but if you do put it in your refrigerator for an hour or so, while your cream puffs are cooking, the flavors will be more nicely mingled, and the flavor of the ricotta filling will be enhanced. Now, this is the size of your cream puff if you are using 1 tablespoonful. What I did for you is also make some for 1 teaspoon, and you'll notice the difference in size. So you can decide the size that you like. Of course, here you'll have 36 to 40 cream puffs, and here you'll get about 18 or so. Now, as soon as we take these out of the oven, these have cooked for 25 minutes, and they were perfect, so we took them out, put them on a cooling rack. We immediately make a slit so that it does not steam, and you'll see it's nice and dry inside, a little hole there, and it's ready to receive the filling. Now, as soon as these are cooled, we will put the filling in. Also, remember to grease your pan, your cooking pan. Our cream puffs are now cooled, and we have our ricotta filling and our crema pasticcera, which of course is our Italian cream. These are better made 3 hours early or even the night before so that the filling is cool. This, of course, alone, this recipe alone, would fill all of our cream puffs, but I wanted to give you a variety of fillings. The same with the ricotta. Now, I'm going to fill half with the ricotta filling and half with the crema pasticcera, which actually literally means pastry cream. So, see, they open easily. They're nice and cool. What you can do is do this so that your guests can tell which filling they have, so that they don't get a filling that they don't especially want, or if they prefer the other filling, which is fine. Of course, they're both delicious, and I'm sure your guests will love either one. This, incidentally, is the same filling that you find in the Italian cannoli, only sometimes there are candied fruits added to it, which I did not add now. But you can use citron, or the candied lemon, candied pineapple, but I like it plain. The only different flavor, of course, is your chocolate bits. All right, here we have our crema pasticcera, as I told you. Finish these and then put them on a lovely serving platter. And then we, of course, will use our confectioner's sugar. And you will not be able to tell whether this was done by professional chefs or by you in your kitchen. There we go. I'm going to put them in our platter now. Arrange them nicely. And we'll sprinkle the first layer with our confectioner's sugar. This is the easiest way of doing it, of course. And now the next. layer. Ecco, bignè di San Giuseppe. Doesn't that look festive? Ecco allora i nostri dolci. Here we have our zabaglione alla napoletana with the 3 different glasses, and you can be as festive or as simple as you like. Crispelle con pesche. This was our crepe with the batter, which included lemon rind and orange rind, whipping cream, and maraschino cherry on top, and underneath this, of course, is your peach. Ecco allora il bignè di San Giuseppe, which are your cream puffs, St. Joseph's cream puffs, and our dolci are absolutely beautiful, festive looking, delicious tasting. Allora buon appetito e alla prossima volta. We will be finishing our first series of tapes with this dolce, and we hope that we will see you in all of our other tapes. I'm sure that you'll enjoy every one that you try. Arrivederci. Ciao.